Elections have consequences.
All right, I know y'all didn't expect me back again today, but I did. I did put a message out that I was going to have the pleasure of interviewing Tom Vasquez today. He's running for the countywide seat, Group 9. Sandra Sheffer hosts the Race in the Races. And I know he has another engagement like right after this that he actually has to travel to. So we're gonna get straight to the point, start talking, get involved in this conversation in order for him to be able to make it to his next event. And I truly appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to me today, knowing that you had a really tight schedule. It's 2 months out from election day. So I know you guys are busy. So go ahead and introduce yourselves for the folks, and then we can go ahead and get this all started.
Get it out. Well, thank you, Sandra, for having me. For the Race for the Races audience, I got to tell you, before we dive into me, I am so happy and honored to be here. I was telling Sandra when I first got into trying to understand what's going on in Broward, the first place I went to, Race in the Races. I came here to figure out what's going on. So this audience here absolutely has my respect. I know that these questions are going to be hard hitting because I know the audience you have, Sandra, and I'm really, really excited to be here. So
thank you for that compliment. Thank you for that compliment. So, and on the fact that you said you went and checked us out, that's a really good thing. We've been doing candidate interviews since the 2020 cycle. I used to do it with the partner. We're not together, but I still continue to do it because I understand how important it is for people to have an opportunity to give, to hear from the candidates. And I wanted to create a space where the candidate for themselves get to speak on that platform instead of them being part of a group. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to us and talk to the audience.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, so I guess we kick off with some basic introductions. Yes. Again, it's Tom Vasquez, and if this is the first time you ever seen me, let me give you just the generic background so you understand when we talk today where everything's going to come from. So the first thing is I am a father of 6. All right, I got a big family. I'm a Spanish man, so Spanish, Latinos, everybody's family. It's family all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what brought me to Florida. I'm originally a New York City kid. Born and raised up there, and so I did my career, which we're going to get into in a little bit. But my background starts there. When I was coming up on the streets of New York, I was kind of a little bit of I think today we call them at-risk students. I wasn't necessarily the favorite kid in school. All right, so I was kind of the one that was labeled a little bit, getting into trouble, not doing homework. All that type of stuff. So I had my struggles. I was not a very promising student, and not a lot of people had a lot of faith in me coming up. My parents, of course, always did. They were pushing me, although I think I drove them a little crazy during those years. But it was a teacher. There was one teacher that when I went into that classroom with this individual, boy, the challenge came, the change came. He drew something out of me that I didn't even know what was there before. And that really started setting me on the right course. Eventually, that led for me to choose a career upon graduating from high school, and I chose the military. Principally because that teacher that changed things for me came out of the military. And so I did just shy of 30 years. I recently retired, and I've come down here. I've been down in Florida now for 5 years, all Broward County right here. And in that 30 years, something happened when I had my family and having children. One of my sons went through the challenge of special needs. And I think, Sandra, we've talked about this before, right?
Yes. I'm an ESC mom too. My daughter is on the spectrum.
And so those that are part of that community and that student body, we all know this. We all share the same story. Mm-hmm. A lot of us were taken aback. Really? This is what's going on? And mostly it's we don't know what to do. And at least in my case, I didn't know what to do. And I was very scared, and the future didn't look right. But public schools and the staff at the local public school were magnificent. and they changed things for me. They gave me the confidence. They showed me how to do this, and they gave my family hope, and they really gave my son a chance to live and turn things around in such a successful way. He's done great, right? He's gone K through 12. He's already graduated. He's got his own small business. He's doing really well. I'm really proud of him. Got an associate's degree. But public schools did that. So and so when that happened early on, when my son was coming up, I started learning the IEP process and learning how to advocate properly for your child. And that quickly turned me into, because when you learn something, Sandra, and you know something good, what do you do with it? You share it.
You want to share it, yes.
You got to share. Hey, did you guys know this? If you say it this way. And so as I started spreading the word in the community, people started trusting me. They're like, wow, Tom really is trying to help us all out. They pushed me forward and asked me to run, and I ran, and I got elected. So I do have prior experience here. I was a school board member before for the military basis public school system. It's the Department of Defense Education Activity, DODEA is what it is. And I did a term there. So I bring all that experience to this, right? The ESC, the advocacy, having done this job before at those public schools in the military basis public school system. But as I continued my career, because again, 30 years is a long time. I did just under, it was like 28 and a half. But as I was coming up, going back and forth through all my tours, I got asked to come up to Washington, D.C. in the Pentagon. And there, what I was doing overseas, they kind of wanted to bring some expertise that I was getting out there up there. And it applies to your audience today. Mm-hmm. Because one of the big things on the mind of voters is safety. And so for the listening audience, when I got pulled up there, I got assigned to a program called Integrated Installations Protection, IIP, Security Division, Headquarters Marine Corps, Pentagon. What I did there was I secured fixed facilities, the bases, to include the public schools against active shooter, against natural disasters, against man-made or just natural disasters. So that whole programmatics on how to properly do that is what I actually did at that level. I brought in prime contractors to help us get to a certain level, integrated all that defense. It takes a little bit of time, but I know the methodology to do that. In doing so, the implied requirement is to have a background and a certification in that field. So that's where my undergrad degree comes in. So my undergraduate degree is in emergency management, since I was doing emergency management policy. And I got certified in emergency management, at least in the basic levels, in ICS structure and NIMS. That basically means that I actually know what the cops should be doing, what the fire department should be doing, how they're supposed to integrate on a scene, how they control all that. I understand all that. And that's what I did up there. The story continues. So my son's coming up. We're going through school, public schools. Everything's going well, doing all this. I'm trying to get back out to Sandra. Marines don't like sitting behind desks. All right, we don't like that. But they kept me up there. And they said, now that I was doing policy and all that stuff, they said, now, Tom, we're going to shift you down here, Quantico. And they sent me down there to now do the execution of the budget. All right, the Pentagon usually writes the budget. They policy battle for the budget, but then they execute it somewhere else. And so I was given the budget for a big chunk of budget for the Joint Staff, upon which the whole purpose of the budget in the program there was protection. That's the name of the program. So where I emphasize, again, back to keeping safety and executing budgets across the fiscal years of 5-year programmatics that they have up there in the federal government. So that means that I understand contracts. I know there's been a lot of talk about contracts. What can we do about that and the like? I speak contract. I could tell you where, I know there was questions about $800 million and where to go. Oh, I have an idea where that went because I've been on both sides.
Okay.
So I have a background that might help the audience. Tom did it. So I kind of know how that. And then lastly, to close it out again. So so those are the kind of like the programmatics, the basic bio, the basic resume, and basically my story.
That was not basic. That was a lot going. That was a lot of things happening, a lot of interesting stuff. And I was like, ain't nothing basic about that. You gave us like the whole rundown. But what we're gonna do is like we're gonna break it down just a little bit more in order for the audience to be able to get it in pieces. And if they want to just go back and refer to your thoughts on a specific item, they'll be able to do that. But I appreciate you giving us like the full global view of why it is that you believe that you're the best person for this particular position. And and we're glad to see that that, or at least I'm going to say I'm glad to see that you ran, just because I don't think anybody should run unopposed. I'm just one of those people. It's nothing personal about anybody, about anything. I just think that it's better for, I don't think people should run unopposed, even if they're doing a good job, because there's always room to do a better one. And if you know that that the seat doesn't belong to you, and that there are people that's going to continue to hold you accountable or run against you, I think it forces that individual to, to up their game, be a better public servant and everything like that. So for just that alone, I appreciate the fact that you're running. So I was taking notes while you were giving us, the rundown, a lot of what you were doing. I heard there were several reasons why you decided to run. Because you have the experience, of an ESC, a child going through ESC. You're a really believer in public school, in that all of your children went through public school. So before I get into my question, there is one question that's in the chat that's relevant to what you've already said. It's like, do you presently have any children in a public school system right now? So
right now, my 18-year-old just graduated. She graduated last year. Right now, I have a 5th grader that for this year, due to personal family reasons, no, we got her home. We're homeschooling, and then I got a little baby, so she's still not too old enough yet to get to public school, to get to that early reading process. But once she gets it, she's a year and a half. But once she gets to that 3 years old, 4 years old, we'll get her up in there.
Yes, no, I understand. I'm one of those parents. I have one child in charter. I have one that's in public school. Yeah. My ESC child is in public school, and I actually pulled her out one year, put her in a private school. It was the worst decision I ever made, and I brought her right back to the public school system, because they absolutely do. When they are doing it well, when the public school system is doing it well, it's the best place for best place for a child with special needs. When they're doing it well, properly staffed, and people really are here to do the work of the children, right? So you told us why we run. But, we're going to get into the $800 million, because that's probably why we in the other situation that I really want to talk to you about first. And that's this whole redesigning school things that they're talking about. The meeting that they had on Tuesday, I believe they decided to close at least 5 schools. And it could be anywhere in the district. All of them can actually come from one district. So what are your thoughts on this redesigning school? And if you have the opportunity to be a part of the board in November, what would be your thoughts on that? Because they are going to wait until the 25-26 school year to actually close whatever schools they're going to close. So there's time for board members to have some sort of input and influence on what schools end up closing and how that process looks.
Yeah, I appreciate this one. So I'm going to try to get at this at a different angle for a second. Lots of times people get into conflicts or misunderstandings, or they don't really get what's going on because we're asking the wrong question. In my case, I don't think the question should begin with how many schools we're going to close. If we do it that way, we've already, ipso facto, if I use Latin, are going to have conflict. That's just the wrong approach. This is why I say we need experienced leadership, right? An experienced leader would say something to the degree of, first, we define what we're aiming at. First, we get that down pat. And usually what happens, and part of my background, I've said it in other platforms just for the audience here, this business about restructuring, well, in business, so I work for a Wall Street firm now. I'm in banking now, okay? And so those that are following that what we know about business restructures and we got to close footprints and all the like. And I've done it before in the military as well, where I help reduce the size of the force. So reduction of force and growing and up and down in organizations. That's just when you study it, you see it there. When you live it, you do it all the time. Okay. And so what starts first is what are you aiming at? And that's usually defined by a fiscal achievement. Like there's some fiscal number we're trying to hit. If you're smart, you stagger that out over a couple of years, right? And then you start talking about market share. You start talking about that's what a business would do. Where's the market? In this case, where are the kids that we're actually going to compete to get back? Once you start laying all that out, very quickly, it starts to tell its story to yourself. The story comes out. We're going to get kids in this district. We're going to get them from this charter school because we could compete versus this one. Now we're going to, so what we need to do is keep this school open, close this one, move everybody over here, power down, all the savings goes here, and we rebuild to become more competitive. vice just arbitrarily closing schools because we're trying to get to some budgetary number without a vision. So normally that's how it goes. All right. And so I always start the way we're doing it here. To me, we're starting wrong because we're not asking the right questions. That being said,
okay, so I understand that you're saying they're not asking the right questions. I think it's more like they're not telling the public. They're not letting the public know what kind of questions they're asking and truly what their goal is, right? So, right. I mean, we don't know if they're asking the right questions or not. All we know is what they're telling us and what they're showing us. And there could be a whole bunch of reasons why that's the way it's coming out, right? So maybe they ask those questions, whatever the questions are that you're going to ask, that you think that they should have asked. They probably asked those questions, and based on what they want to do, this is how they're rolling it out, right? So we to me, it's that, at least as a person from the public, I'm not sure they're telling us ultimately what their goal is, right? So I understand the perspective that you're taking, but I'm just telling you as a mama, as a parent, as a person who they take a third of my property taxes and give it to the Broward County Public Schools. I think it's more that they're not telling us exactly what it is that they want to do and what their real motivation is for deciding to close a particular number of schools. I just want to put that out there, and and then you can go ahead.
I agree. I'm gonna tell you, this is where the word is thrown around called transparency, and I've been trying to and I've actually been trying to be helpful. I haven't been like I try to I've been to town halls and I tell them, hey guys, you might want to think of this and think of that, right? I try to be helpful in my criticisms or at least I wouldn't say criticism, just
constructive criticism. Criticism is okay. It was constructive criticism.
I just try to let them know, and I tell them, the public doesn't trust us. I mean, you got that has to be the first calculus. So I think they're operating that way in a couple of reasons. Usually when a big organization acts this way, they're defensive and they're hiding because internally, usually, there has to be some accountability made that they're running from.
Absolutely.
Right? They don't want the blame to fall on me. So we're going to keep playing this little game internally and not say we got to say the one before come. So this is again where leadership has to be there. It has to understand what's going on. Is accountability necessary to be able to do accountability properly? But it's called the cleanup. And so and again, really, when organizations act like that, it's a lack of trust in leadership. Because most professionals and the ones that I've met at the district personally, I know how it seems sometimes prospectively, but I'm gonna kind of defend them a little bit. At the district level, everyone I talk to seems very professional. They seem that they, what's going on. Their heart seems to be in the right place. I think it may be a little bit they don't trust. Usually, when organizations act like this, they don't trust the leadership. Like if I can tell you the truth, they're gonna come kill me, kind of thing, right?
Okay, so you must have met the people that don't come to the board meetings, right? Yeah. So whoever those management people are that you got a chance to meet are not the ones that come to the board meetings and sit at the table. Because them folks, when they're asked questions like, "Oh, I don't know, I'm gonna check. I gotta ask somebody. Can we bring that back the next time?" So I don't know who you talking to, but it ain't none of them people that's sitting at that table that's supposed to come and explain the money. Is all I'm gonna say. And I don't spend way too much time and too much hours of my life that I will never get back listen to these people's inability to answer questions. So I appreciate you out here trying to defend the folks that you've been talking to, but I do not believe that those are the people that were sitting at the table. All right, when they're come to answer questions about this budget, how much money you got, what we gonna do, and all of this type of stuff. Respectfully, I say this to you.
I hear you. No, the leaders at the top of the house, they have to be held accountable. We have to have a conversation.
The superintendent just got there, so he ain't been there long enough for people to not trust him. So you know what I mean. The man done had the job like 1 month or something like that. So if there's some sort of distrust, I don't believe it's with Superintendent Hepburn. I don't even know if they could have not trusted Licata in the 9 months that he was there because he just got there too. So who is it that they're not trusting? How far back are we going? We done had like 6 superintendents in the last 3 years or something like that. Yeah. So where does this distrust start? A lot of it got to be them people that's sitting at the table that come unprepared to every board meeting when they got to answer money questions.
And I don't know if your audience knows this, but the key people that Sandra's talking about, a lot of those people have already left. Right? There's people leaving.
Continuing to leave.
They're continuing to leave. And so that signals from a public, it looks like there's some really bad stuff going on, and nobody wants to be left holding the bag. That's what it looks like. And so this is why you need leaders. This is why you need people that can come in there and shoot it straight, fix it, get this thing done right, because our kids deserve better than this. So
yes,
one of the reasons why I'm running.
Right. Okay. And I appreciate that. Right. And I want to make one more point about this redefining schools. So we talked a little bit earlier, and I was telling you, we talked about, I told you I had an MBA, and I remember one of the classes we take first semester B school is business communications. Right. We take a business communication class, and there's a way for you to deliver bad news. Like when when companies are merging, half the people got to get fired. There's a way that you do that. There's a way to roll that out, because you're going to have unhappy people. But the way you present it to them, yes, you're going to have some unhappy people, but not as many. And you can still give that bad news in a particular way. Ain't nobody that was responsible for telling these parents that these schools were closed and took a business communication class, because that was absolutely awful and ridiculous the way they did that. So whoever gets on the board, please send them folks to go take a business communication class, so when they come out with whatever new plan they're going to come out with at the next meeting, they do a better job of rolling this information out to the public.
Absolutely. And, just to dovetail, what Sandra said, so again, it's the first semester of the first year in business. This is the first thing you do. Yes. And what she's saying is spot on. You got to be able to communicate properly. And yes, sometimes everyone wants to communicate good news, but the leaders know how to do it when it's bad news. Again, for those watching, this is the expertise I have, and I'll try to bring this to our school so we can get it right for you.
All right. So defining schools, I believe you're going to end up being a part of that, like we said, because it is something that's going to be dealt with the whole next academic year for them to figure out which one of those schools are there. And you also talked in your introduction about your ability to deal with budgets and contracts.
Yes.
Do you attend the board meetings? Is what I first need to ask you. And
yes.
What are your thoughts on the way? And if you do, and you hear them talk about these contracts that they agree on almost every board meeting, what are your thoughts on how they handle people who are coming to ask the board to approve multi-million-dollar contracts? Yeah.
So again, from my background, military, my background, Wall Street banks, that's not how we do it. This approach that we have, that's not how it's done. So what I would expect to see is a little bit more control conversation on how that goes, well before it gets presented to the board. You don't want to present these type of decisions with just the first time they see it is that morning on a sheet, right? And then say, oh, by the way, he's here to speak, and there you got to make a decision.
On $23 million.
Yeah, that to me is, and people take advantage of that, right? Businesses would walk into that saying, oh, that's how they do business. So we set ourselves up by not having what we call business process controls. All right. And so you have to have controls when you're having your contract conversations that eventually there's a lot of questions that should be going on. The board members should be allowed to have these questions fielded first, before you come talk to us at the board, answer all these questions. There should be some kind of way to talk on these things and have it funneled up. I would expect to have hearings on there's a certain number. I would say that, listen, if it's going to be a contract above this number, we have hearings on it first, right? We're going to talk first with the staff, with Dr. Hepburn, and understand, and then we could bring in other outside parties and have a public conversation. So there's I just have a different approach to it. I myself have let contracts, RFPs. I've awarded contracts, big contracts, right? So I understand that's just a very nuanced parlance that goes with that. So I just the way we do it is just not what I'm used to, and I would want to change how we do it, honestly, to tell you the truth. And
since you can't speak to your board members before you guys actually sit on the dais, how would you be able to get them to see things the way you think is best in handling contracts?
Oh, well,
do you think you have that you would be able to get, at least a 5-4 vote on something that you actually believe in?
Well, numbers usually don't lie. They speak for themselves, and I could be kind of persuasive when it comes down to getting what I need to get done.
Listen, I took accounting. Those sheets, They don't lie, but we don't know where them numbers come from.
No, I tell you, now you're talking about the art of persuasion. I think for me, when it comes to contracts, it's like I said before, you got to ask the right questions. So different board members come from different perspectives. Mm-hmm. So long as we're asking the right questions, we'll all get to see it from the right way, and we'll get to the right answer. I believe I can work with anybody, regardless of who's up there or not. And I think we're all going to be centered on saving our schools, getting the budget right. And I just believe that we'll have a will to do that. And I could be pretty persuasive when it comes to those conversations.
Okay, so I do have some other questions that I want to ask you, but there's some folks in the comment in the chat that's talking about how is it that you're gonna want to. How will you engage parents? Because Ms. Moore says that the current school board member, she actually is doing a very good job of, addressing community concerns. And, and another one is talking about how will you engage parents in this whole process. So with that being said, folks thinking that, the person there is already, is at least keeping the parents and the community happy. How will you be able to do that? We hear of like your corporate experience, your business experience, and how you would manage like the operational parts of the board, but how would you, how can you transfer those skills with community engagement and parental?
Oh, easy. And I've already spoken on this. I'm going to give you a seat at the table. So when we start talking about the transformation of schools in that specific conversation, I already pointed out that the community, the first person to let them know that they're really off track was me. And I got up there and I told them, you need to open this. You need to have formal community input, not just we have a town hall. They need to be part of the process, right? So standing up the right process so that you can have voice and real influence over what's happening, I'll make sure we bring to you. On top of that, it's all about service. So for me, I am a servant leader. A servant leader is a person that says, I'm in a position here in leadership, not for my own good, not because I have some ulterior motive, but simply to be a servant. So I will serve you. You call upon me and I go to work. You're my boss. So I bring that attitude and all my experience to put the work to you. I've already spent 30 years of my life in this role that I was willing to fight, and I did. I was willing to die, and luckily I'm still here, God bless. And you know what's changed since retirement, Sandra? Nothing. I still serve our people. So if you would have me and bless, if I could be blessed with your support, you will get nothing but total service from me to you.
And how will you engage the advisory councils and stakeholders? That's another question. Because I'm part of the advisory, and I see they come and they give reports, at all the meetings. Some show up, some never show up, but they're all these advisory boards. But it seems as though the board don't really listen to much of what they say.
Yes,
so how would you engage the advisory boards?
So for the listening audience, one advantage with me, this is a very particular, unique thing that happened in my case of when I stand here before you today, is that before I even thought about or running, I was asked to help with advisories. So as I was doing, and I've been a part of a couple of advisories just recently, and I'm getting a flavor for what goes on in there. And now my eyes are open. So if you're involved in advisories, task force, and committees, this is a board member that kind of was trained by you. I know that the real knowledge of what's going on is in that group. The real voice that needs to be addressed is in there. Now, it's a perspective, right? That's a perspective, but it's a very powerful one. And so since that's kind of how I came into this whole thing, advisories and committees and the hard work that goes in there is near and dear to my heart. So for me, they will have a friend and an ally. And since I kind of maybe, I want to say raised, because it wasn't that long that I was there, but I have a deep appreciation for what they do. And for me, I would be working hand in hand with all of them.
Okay. So now if you get on this board in November, they the board now thought that they were only going to have to pay $80 million to the charter schools. It turns out that number is more like 108 million. Yes. And they've already agreed to start paying some people back. I think they supposed to have like a 3-year plan or something like that. I think some checks supposed to be written next month. I don't know if that's still the case, but and then they also agreed to give some teachers some raises and some more kind of money. And, and then they found out they got some other bills that they weren't aware of. And there's some schools with missing roofs, small cafeterias, no field, mold, all kinds of stuff. Right. So first, let's talk about the charter schools. Like, how would you handle that once you're there, knowing the amount of money that's owed, and what would you be willing to sacrifice if that becomes necessary in order to make sure the charter schools are paid?
So this is where we have this conversation. So you'll have different people running, and they're going to tell you different things, and I'll give you some things to consider. But again, just to put all the cards on the table, I start the process first with what are we aiming at? What is the number we're trying to hit? So that I know that this decision is a good one or a bad one, and not just a reactive one. That being said, right, normally what happens with a restructure, in every restructure I've been part of, and I've been through two major ones, in every single one, there's always a reduction at the top of the house. Always. There's always some type of management. You condense down the management and you kind of clean that up.
Oh, they just got raises though. Some people just got 14,000, 20,000 new jobs created.
I saw that. So what that tells me is that we're not prepared to really do the restructure for our children. That's what that tells me. It tells me that we're not aiming in the right direction. I don't know what the aim is yet.
I mean, or it could be that, you know, maybe those people are going to leave. They didn't want them to take their institutional knowledge away from the school system, and they needed to do that in order for them to stay to fulfill the vision.
That's true.
Whatever that may be.
Maybe. But again, it comes down to strategy. You got to lay it out. We got to have Dr. Hepburn. Now, he just got there. But he has to, he's probably in a reactive position. We got all these things we got to hit. But what really needs to happen is we need to know where we're going, so that we can know that this decision is the right one, and this is not this is a bad one, and we reduce by this much. That being said,
business communication. If you knew how to explain that in the first place and let people know what's going on, then they don't got to speculate as to why all these people got all this money.
Exactly. Because when people don't understand what's happening, they assume bad intent, and that's just human nature. Mm-hmm. That's just human nature. So again, I just say this is why you want experienced leaders to help us get through. This is not. Look, this is not easy. This is not normal school year. What we're going through here and what we're about to go through, this isn't everybody goes through. This is gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. So everyone really needs to take a solid look at how you want to go through these next 4 years. 4 years of difficulty with budget, difficulty with decisions, and you want to make sure that if we're gonna go through something hard, we come out better at the end. You need experienced leaders. And so I'm throwing my name out there, and hopefully I can get your support behind it, because I'll make sure we're taken care of.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that we have to spend so much time talking about bad contracts. I'm gonna call them bad. That's not your word. That's what I said. So they don't go saying Tom went on there talking about bad contracts. Sandra said that, right? Mm-hmm. And we can't get into the business of the students, because you're so concerned about, like, in terms of just what I'm hearing from you is that you got to figure out what is this number that we're trying to hit in order for us to decide how we're going to manage the school, right? The question should really be like, how can we serve these students, right? Like, it shouldn't be like what number we going to get to. It's like, what could we do in the middle of all this mess, or whatever you want to call it? How is it that we're able to serve these students? And for whatever reason, we can't seem to get to that conversation about how is it that we're going to best serve the students that are left in the school. I know you're trying to go get some more. You need these other 49,000 that are gone because you need money. But what are you doing for the ones that's actually here and staying with you, right? Like, you can't just keep looking for what's outside and not dealing with what's inside your house. So what are you going to do? How are you going to come to the board and figure out how, with everything going on, we really get to the business of serving the students that are in the school right now, that's trying to ride out and tough it out with the school system?
That has to be the immediate first day on the job, right away priority. Addressing what's going on right now in classrooms. And to me, you always start at the basics and work your way back. How are our teachers doing? Our talent is what we call it. Is our talent set up to succeed? Are they overburdened? Do they have too much going on? What's getting in the way of our teachers taking care of our kids? If we have talented teachers that are empowered to teach, believe me, most of the go away right there. We're going to have a lot of good done, making sure that we got the right teachers in the right place, given the tools they need to succeed, and let them go to work. Beyond that, where we at a district level, what we really should be focused on is our principals. The principals are the ones on the ground that make the difference in the school. So selecting the right principals, making sure they have what they need, the freedom to make decisions, and we support them. It's called decentralizing authority. You got to power down or empower underneath you and trust them. Make sure that, back to communicating, communicate what you expect, empower them. And those teachers, once we get to the basics, the right principles, supported the right way, taking care of talent, right away we're starting to go in the right direction. We could take care of a lot of problems right there. And we really got to be personally, again, I want to start, like, when we get up in there and we start moving the ball a little bit, getting a little bit of more, again, I'm pulling from the business world of client focused or customer service is kind of what we say in business. We have to understand that we are servants to the community and we should be very approachable everywhere we're at. If our parents and families are struggling, we should take it that we're struggling. Well, they are the people that we're here to serve. And so we got to that's a cultural change, make sure it's there and push that forward. So I believe in powering down on teachers, powering down on principals, trusting them, helping them, and they will get the right job. If you get the right ones in the right place and we get that part right, a lot of good will start happening there.
And so I want to tell you, the parents, the students, the teachers are sick of all the testing. Okay, they spend their whole year preparing for some tests and they can't really get into the love and the joy of teaching and engagement because they're so concerned with the test. So I know my kids at least my daughter was stressed out about it all year. Some of the comments, because we did an interview yesterday and in the chat, there was like that daggone testing from the ESC students to the gifted students are sick of all the testing. The teachers can't really even teach the class the way they want to because they're so focused on testing. So take that with you, and see how, if you're worried about what's, the product, the students, the teachers, the principals, the schools being managed, this testing is extremely problematic. And that's just some of the feedback that we have, right? So there's a question about like whether or not, Ms. Morse asked, do you agree that they should have settled or they should have continued negotiations because Miami-Dade and Palm Beach County paid much less than Broward?
Oh, do I agree with the settlement? Well, I wasn't purview to all the ins and outs, so I could only give you speculation. And I wish I could give you more. But if I'm the way it looked like to me, we're legally bound to do it. The way it looked like to me, we knew we should have taken care of this before. The way it looked like to me, we kind of like were just maybe we could have done better. And because we didn't, we probably didn't have support where we needed. It probably like we got put in a position we probably shouldn't be in as a district. This should have never gotten to where it is basically where I'm going with that. So now we're gonna have to, pay, and that's unfortunate. So
it's one thing to pay. All right, Tom, I don't mean to cut you off. It's one thing to pay, but it's a whole nother thing to try to squeeze blood out of a tomato, right?
And I don't like it.
If they ain't got no money,
Sandra, I don't like it.
What you gonna get if I ain't got it? You know what I'm saying?
I don't like it. I'm actually pretty upset about it. Pretty upset. The first time I spoke publicly in the chambers was on this issue because I saw that they're gonna make it worse. They're gonna make it worse. So to me, no, I don't like it, but I understand that in the position you're in, fighting against it may sound good, but the way it looks like, again, I don't have any purview to every. If I could have kept fighting, I probably would have. But I don't have the ins and outs and the details. But you got to pay, and it didn't look like we were, in the eyes of the state, we just didn't handle it very well. And now our people, the kids, and our district have to suffer for it. So again, this is one of those things that I say, it requires you want experienced leaders so that they prevent these things from ever happening to begin with.
Okay, so I mean that gotta pay, but okay. I mean, we gonna see. Like, so with all this being said, the voters have an opportunity to either keep 5 board members or change 5 board members, right? Yeah. So people need to really pay attention to the decision that they're about to make. And not even November, August 20th, because only one of the races have 3 candidates. All the other ones, from what I understand, have only 2. So those decisions are going to be made on August the 20th. So the voters really do have an awesome responsibility in front of them on August the 20th, at the last day, to decide what it is they're going to do and who they want to continue to do this, because some of the folks that are there now, they're part of why we're here. You know, they're part of why we're here. They voted to go ahead and settle some debt with, and you apparently, at least what they're telling the public, is they don't have no money. So how you agree to go pay and you don't have no money? Where that credit card, you know, what you got a credit card, you got a loan, what you about to do, right? And then, or that's why you're in a rush to sell these 5 buildings or something like that, right? At the expense of the students, the people who you really there to take care of. Now you go and put them all out because y'all ain't forward thinking, don't have a vision or whatever. Please. Okay. So folks, on August 20th, y'all got a decision to make. Are you keeping these folks that's part of this nonsense that we're dealing with right now, or you're going to take this as an opportunity to change? I'm not saying I'm supporting or, you know, whatever. I'm just telling y'all what y'all need to do, because I can't imagine. I don't want to see what worse looks like, because this is already pretty bad to me. Okay. This is already pretty bad to me. Okay. And so we're running short on time. And then someone made a comment about because there's some people that are singing Ms. Hickson's praises, and then there are other folks who are saying, yeah, she ignored the principal and stuff got worse. So we have both sides in the chat, and I appreciate that people on all sides of the aisle are willing to come in and listen to the show and express their opinion here. And we truly, truly appreciate that. You also talked about in your introduction is that your ability to deal with safety. You know where the police officers need to be, you know where the fire need to be, you need to know, you know where everybody needs to be, right? But I'm gonna start with these metal detectors that they're putting in these schools. What are your thoughts on that? Would you have voted on that, or is there another approach that the school system could have taken? Because another thing with that is that ain't cheap either, right? That's a whole nother big. Ooh, I almost cursed. Ooh, I almost. I did, right? That's another big old bill that they done put on their heads. Yeah.
Again, so metal detectors. Again, let me back it up a little bit.
Is that really safety? What is that?
Right. And so the approach that I'm used to having, okay, in my background and training, it's first you got to talk about threats, right? What it is that you're trying to defend against, right? Then you got to look at probability, and then you got to look at severity. These are the technical terms. When you start doing that matrix, all right, and you start looking at all that, it starts, again, the story starts telling itself. You start realizing, okay, we need to be able to prevent, in this case, guns and weapons from coming into the schools. And then there should be a whole strategy behind that, not just put all eggs in one basket with metal detectors, all right? There should be processes that go with that. There should be a slew of things to be able to mitigate. That's the threat we're trying to mitigate against, and then the best tool to do that is metal detectors, right? So it's going back to asking the right questions and going for the solution of a problem at the right place once you have all the right information. So, but from where I stand, what it looks like, yes, this is something that should have been done, in my view, long ago. All right, we should have just taken care of that early on, and we should be looking at more advanced things. All right, when we start talking about prevention, when we start talking about reinforcing buildings and structure, it costs money. Right, all this it should have been part of the way we think and calculate up on that board. Right, so physical security, preventative measures are things that should be in place. That we owe it to our students and our families to make sure they're safe. But it also has to be done in a larger protective, all hazards approach to defending our schools.
Yeah. So Broward Concerned Citizens said that they wasted money on wands and they should have done that in the first place. However, I'm one of those people that thinks that we're always being reactive and we're always dealing with symptoms of problems, right? So now we have kids going to school, children going to school with like all this kind of security, half of them scared, worried about these things, where it's like the need for metal detectors and kids feeling as though they need to bring guns or knives or weapons of, whatever to school is a symptom of a greater problem that we're not dealing with at all, right? There's a bullying problem. There's a mental health problem. There's a way too many guns in the country problem. You know what I mean? And until you deal with those things, keep adding more metal detectors, adding more security, doing this, that, and the third,
And you're hitting it on the head. I mean, that's the point. The point is that we are very reactive right now. Our leadership is behind the power curve. They're behind the power curve on paying for charter schools. They're behind the power curve on when it comes to security. They're behind. They can't drive to where we need to be. So if I get a chance, and again, blessed by those out there in the audience, that if you could support me, what you're going to get out of me is I'm going to drive this thing. We're going to move forward. We're going to get there as quick as possible. We're not going to react to anything. We're going forward because we're going to have a vision and we're going to know how to get there. And I will collaborate with everybody else on that board to help each other out, to move together as a team and get this stuff done. There's a lot of stuff that should have been handled a long time ago, and we can move on to making sure that our kids are getting the best high quality education that they deserve.
Yeah. And so, and the other concern that I have is like, I send a black boy to school every day. And, with these metal detectors, discipline being an issue, because the Promise program was something that was put in the school to kind of keep students out of, going to juvenile detention facilities and all of this type of stuff. Right. And then when you're on the discipline side, when you look at the numbers, they're basically saying that it's black and brown boys are the ones that are the most of a discipline problem in the public school system. I don't agree with that, right? I think that's just how they decide who they want to enforce whatever type of discipline against, and it just so happened to be black or brown boys, right? Mm-hmm. So what, if anything, can the board do about that? Because I know that one of the things that the directives that the board had given was to revision the Promise program, because that can no longer be what it is. Once, if you make it to the board in November, is that something that you would deal with? And what's your position on discipline and what used to be called the Promise program in the school system?
Okay. For those that are concerned about discipline, I'm going to tell you two things from me. Okay. First, like I said in my intro, I was that kid. I went through all types of discipline before. So I know what worked and what didn't work in my particular case. Number two, in my career, I was paid to instill discipline. One of the duties that I had in the Marine Corps was what's called a drill instructor, or some people will term it a drill sergeant. Now, there's a lot of yelling and screaming and going on in boot camp. Not saying that we're doing boot camp. I'm saying that I understand the process and the principles of achieving discipline and I was working on the discipline committee. I went one time and I told him, you know what, if I had to offer constructive criticism here, it looks like what we have is punitive thinking. You do something bad and I must now punish. It's like another form of punitiveness. Mm-hmm. That is not discipline. Mm-hmm. That is not discipline. A professional would tell you discipline is, the better word for discipline is transformation. What you're supposed to do is take a child or a student who doesn't have the habits and the behavior habits that we're doing, and through a process of discipline, output the behaviors that we need. Now, we do this again, in my prior career, we did this, this is what we do, all right? There is expertise in this area, which I happen to bring. Having been that kid, having done it for a living, I would love nothing more than to get up there and then start working the discipline problem.
Because so full disclosure, I was part of that discipline committee. I went to a few meetings and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. This is not how I'm about to spend my time. I felt it was counterproductive. I don't think the folks who were trying to run it was listening to the folks who they really need to listen to, because and I know you need to have all types of stakeholders, but however, there were people in that room that benefited from discipline programs, right? So if you're going to profit from kids getting in trouble, you can't be in the room trying to come up with some sort of plan to help them, because because to help them puts you out of business, right?
Right, so right.
For me, I was like, what y'all doing? You know what I mean? And it was way too many of them sitting in that room for me for that to make any sense. So I participated. I may go to another one, but I wasn't about to inconvenience myself to go sit in a room like that, right? Even just the members of law enforcement, the very first day that I went there, they had some police officers from the law enforcement department. I'm like, this is who you sitting in this room? And they were not very representative of the Broward County, which they call a minority majority community. I don't really believe in the word minority at all, but since they refer to it as a minority majority community, there were no minority officers that walked in that room. I'm like, that's part of the problem, right? So there was a whole bunch of dynamics that are going on that, I think the people who are responsible for dealing with discipline in the public school system are absolutely not the right folks. I don't see how you have people who profit from students, being discipline-ish problems, being in the room too, making decisions on discipline. So the whole thing was nuts to me. So,
and just to add a little flavor on that.
I need to deal with that, and I want to know what you gonna do, brother.
Yeah, no, and add a little flavor on that. I'm gonna add a little flavor on that from personal experience. Again, another story that most people can understand, and relate to. A lot of the so when we go to, let's use the military. A lot of people had trouble coming up or whatever, and then they find their way in the military. A lot of people, why? Because it's the discipline that they get. But let me tell you what's behind that. Those people that right now, those kids that may seem like they're trouble, they're never going to get it. I know there must be moms out there like, I can't get into the head of my son. He's with the wrong crowd. This is happening. What do I do? Again, I'm that kid. And if we do this right, do you know what's inside of those kids, those black and brown kids? Winners. They have courage. They have cleverness. They're strong. They have grit. There is a lot of good in them that we have to pull out of them. You're not going to get it out if you don't know what you're doing. You're not going to get it out if all we're going to offer is punitive, reactive, I don't want to get in trouble because I'm a teacher, I got to watch my career kind of attitude. We really have to take a hard conversation, really rally with everybody and try to focus, aim. It's all about aim. Aim at the good that's there and help bring it out and do it together. And you know what happens with discipline a lot of times? The school's on one side talking and the parents on the other side talking. No one's talking together, right? They're pitted against each other. And that's wrong.
And the kid is suffering. The kid is dealing with all the punishment of the bad behavior of the grown-ups, right? The teacher's not doing what they need to do to properly train them. Sometimes parents aren't doing what they can for whatever reason, right? But at the end of the day, it's the kid that has to deal with all of this punishment, all of this suffering because adults can't get it together, right? Because that's why we're the ones that's responsible for raising them. But when we do things wrong or don't do what we're supposed to do, not doing well at our job, it's the kids that always have to deal with the consequences of the bad behavior of adults. And we really need to revisit that and figure that out, right?
For nothing else, if people are unsure where to go with Tom or what you're going to do, think of those kids. There's good in them. And I know if we get this right, you'll be very happy with what we can do in Broward County. In 4 years, what we could do for the black and brown kids that seem to keep getting in trouble, or all of our kids, doesn't matter.
Allegedly getting in trouble.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter because when you have the right process, it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter if things are bad in the house or not. The process that we build can help transform the life of a kid. Let's give it a shot. Let's go for it.
Absolutely. And so Broward Concerned Citizen Uncensored said they went to a hood high school and they didn't have to worry about no metal detectors. I went to a hood high school too, and I didn't have to worry about no metal detectors. And I went to a hood high school in Miami-Dade County. So yeah, so it's unfortunate that this is where we are. And I really think it's because we're not dealing with what the real issues are. We're just dealing with symptoms of problems and stuff like that and continuing to enter in contracts that I don't know how they could afford, but I digress. All right, so I know you got another engagement. I absolutely want to make sure you have the last word. So you're going to tell us the website, and you're going to tell people how they can support you, whether that be donating, volunteering. You're going to promise them some T-shirts and some water or snacks, if they come help you, or whatever it is that you're going to do to try to get out this vote.
Yeah, let's wrap this up and let's bring it to a close, right? Bring it into a landing here. Okay, so for the audience, my website is www.Vasquez with an S, Vasquez 4 schoolboard.com. Vasquez 4 schoolboard.com. It's our website. When you get on there, please like, subscribe, get on social media, follow us. We put all that stuff there to try to get it out to the public and stay in constant communication with them. Obviously, if you heard anything here that you like and you want to get in here and support this campaign, we're really getting a lot of movement. People are really looking for change. Let's join. Come on in there. Just send me a message. We'll respond to you. Someone from my team will get back to you. We can use you. I'm knocking doors, helping out. And, of course, donations. Any little bit helps, and we greatly appreciate it. I leave you with this thought. if you look at those that succeed, those that make it, I look at myself as a kid that made it when he shouldn't have. Very rough area of New York is where I came from. It was education that did that, but there's something else beyond that. All right. All success comes through the doorway of adversity. Now, there's some that are scared. There's some that don't want to go through that door of adversity. But those that have gone through it, they know this is the way to get there. Do you know what we have a lot here in Broward over the last few years with all the changes of superintendents, all the issues that we had on this board, we have all endured. We have all gone through some severe adversity here in Broward, and now's our time to turn all that you've been through, all that you've experienced, all that has been suffered by our parents, everywhere. Now we could take all that collectiveness, put it together, and turn the page. Let's go in a new direction. It's time, Broward. Let's do it.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, and have a great one. Go to your event. I'm not going, but go to your event.
Thank you again. Love it.
Vote August 20th, right?
August 20th.
Early
August
voting.
20th. Early voting is at 10 August, and I think the ballots go out in mid-July, 11 July, I think is when they go out. So vote by mail is even better. So get out there. Tell me by your vote. All right, you are in control. This is your chance to shape the next 4 years. Let's go do it, Broward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elections have consequences.